Well, good morning. We start week 4. It seems that time is flying by, but probably we're not having as much fun as we would have done were we here in school. But I'll come back to that a little bit later on. In the meantime, I want to reflect on something brilliant that happened last week. You see, when you're in these circumstances, ingenuity, innovation, imagination are what matters. We had planned to run a law conference in school, but circumstances meant that we couldn't. So what did we do? Well, Mr. Reddy, who'd been the brains behind it, said, let's put this online. And actually, what a brilliant job we did. And everybody involved was really inspired by what they saw. They see the potential of us being able to use these media to reach out, not just to our own pupils through this last week's law conference, but to do other things in a similar vein. But I do want to mention Nyambura Kagwanja, and in particular Georgie Goswell. I gathered Georgie's opening address to 100 students, teachers and lawyers from across the country was just scintillatingly brilliant, so well done Georgie in that regard. But what does it show us? It shows us actually, one, the importance of using all those networks to help open our pupils' eyes to the possibilities out there. But secondly, that these times allow us to be creative and find other ways of just opening up that really, really important part of education. So well done to everybody involved. It sounds like last week's law conference was a blinding success. There's been one burning question, I think, on all our lips since we found out we couldn't return to school in January. When will Uppingham be allowed to reopen again? We had all hoped it would be the 22nd of February straight after half term. And so last Wednesday, when we knew the Prime Minister was going to announce a tentative route out of lockdown, many of us were waiting with bated breath to hear what was said about schools. As it turns out, schools won't be allowed to reopen in England until the 8th of March at the earliest. And even then, we think the news gets slightly worse. We think that will probably be just primary schools, with senior schools following a week or so later. Well, you might imagine my heart sank when I heard that, and I'm sure yours did too. We know up and down the country children are being deprived of an education, and we know the damage that's doing socially, emotionally, psychologically, and academically. Well, what a shame we're in this position. So we thought, well, we've got to make a positive decision. And we know the second half of term is going to be disrupted. So what we thought we'd do is bring forward the end of term by a week and have 4 weeks of disrupted and online learning, and put that week at the start of the summer term when we think we're going to have a much clearer run at things. Now that means returning on the 11th of April and not the 18th, and we think we've got 3 real advantages to doing that. One, it means we're all back and we can focus in on the things that the school offers and make the most of the term without interruption or the anxiety of not quite knowing what's going on. Secondly, if you live overseas, it's much better for your planning. You're much more likely to know what's happening with quarantine and to be able to arrange flights. But thirdly, if you're in those exam years, we're going to be in a position then, I hope, where we know exactly what's going to be expected of you in those assessments toward the end of the summer term. And it gives us as much time as possible to get you in the best possible position to be able to navigate those as well as possibly can be. So I hope you all agree that that's a really good decision to the best benefit of Uppinghamians. Many more details will follow as to how that's going to manage over the next few weeks, but I thought you'd appreciate knowing now the direction of travel and the decision we've taken. And of course, don't give up hope. If we can get you back to school before the end of term, we will, and you'll be very, very welcome. And I imagine parents will be bundling you into cars as soon as we're given the green light to get people back here. So there we go. We've got a plan. We're going to make the most of it. And as ever, I think we've come up with a solution that will work for the best benefit of the whole community. Now, you may not believe it, but this time last week, Uppingham was covered in snow, and people were tobogganing up and down the hill in the Arboretum, including yours truly. Maybe not my most dignified moment, but an awful lot of fun. So we're going into week 4, and this is a point at which I think it's really important we reach out to each other. We know we're still going to be in lockdown for a little while longer. Make sure you go to those house Zooms. Make sure you message each other and you stay in contact. I think it's really, really important. So let's give it our all this week, as we always do. Let's make the most of being part of a really, really strong community. And everybody, have a fantastic week.